Welcome back to Professor Andy Miah Faces the Future, a podcast where I take a topic from the worlds of transhumanism, philosophy and science to think through the questions we face and the answers we have that will get us through these remarkable times. Today we're talking about whether any of us can expect to have a job in the future, or whether everything we currently do for work will eventually be done by a machine. It's one of those age-old anxieties about our technological world, and a few years ago a journalist asked me this very question. In fact, he asked me whether I thought that the rise of artificially intelligent robots would mean the end of all future jobs for humans, and I thought to myself, why is it that this is the conclusion that people reach when imagining how such machines will fit into our lives? They could do so many other things rather than just take over humanity. But there's a presumption of our redundancy, quickly followed by the further projection that the machines will take over humanity and perhaps even make us flee planet Earth to somewhere else. Now I know there's something quite obvious about this, quite logical even. The argument goes that if a machine can do something better than a human, then those who own the means of production, those who are the employers of people who do work, who have wages to pay, will choose the more affordable option, which will likely be the machine. And after all, we know that employees are a bit of a pain to deal with. Humans get sick, they have the need to take leave, they make mistakes, they complain, they may even choose not to work. And they're also very, very expensive. So you can see how if you are somebody that has to manage and support a labour force, attempting to find alternative options, if they are available, is incredibly appealing. And of course we've seen the impact of these things over the last century with the increased automation of countless industries and countless services. Everything from how we pay for products to how we're treated medically has increasing levels of automation built into the process. So it's pretty hard to deny the fact that humans are being increasingly squeezed out of many, many tasks. From washing cars to making them and even imagining vehicles of the future, a key pillar of engineering design has been to increase the integration of automation. More reliance on computers, software, robotics, and anything that cuts the human out of the equation is what industry seeks. It's a machine that desires more machines. So I can see why people might be worried about their future employment prospects, especially because historically, our labour has been attached to our ability to thrive and survive. We exist in a socio-economic setting which demands that we exchange our labour for resources that allow us to lead the kinds of lives we want to lead for ourselves. And I'm afraid to say that there's a good chance that it's even worse than we first thought. There are many more types of tasks that we do today that are in jeopardy tomorrow than we may initially have believed. Over the last 5 years alone, we've seen artificial intelligence employed to diagnose patients, write poetry, undertake new forms of journalism, pilot vehicles and drive cars, and the list goes on and on. And in just the last year, we've seen what happens when something like this changes overnight, where an entire economic sector disappears. While this year it's been the pandemic, next year it could be artificial intelligence. And these are tough subjects to think about right now, at a time when so much of our labour market is in jeopardy. And certainly we couldn't have imagined that a pandemic might be the crucial factor that leads societies to come to terms with the prospect that huge changes are afoot, where software ushers in a new form of consumption and production. We're still not quite there yet, but over the pandemic, we've seen remarkable examples of how industries have pivoted into completely new forms of reaching and engaging consumers, from producing live gigs in Fortnite to devising entirely online festivals and film productions. We've seen what major change demands of us. And even if it's far from figured out, we have begun to see how entire swathes of our society can suddenly be required to shift into a completely different gear almost overnight. This may teach us something about the impending, more permanent transition into a world where machines are taking our jobs. Even the stuff we thought might have been impossible to automate, like the creative things we do or even caring for others, is all up for grabs. Elon Musk has even told us that we don't need colleges anymore, we can just learn everything ourselves from the internet. He's wrong, of course, but that doesn't mean that the way we teach is secure either. I fully expect my profession to change dramatically over the next 20 years. It is already. We've embraced so many new ways of working that the scientific process is almost unrecognisable to those working at the cutting edge. From the rise of citizen science that empowers the public to participate in discoveries, to the data-driven world in which our science circulates, there's a huge amount of change taking place. So nothing's safe, not even playing games. Machines can play games better than us as well. And this isn't even new at all. Back in 1997, IBM's Deep Blue beat chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov in a historic game that led many people to conclude that machines were now smarter than humans. Kasparov even made a documentary reflecting on the whole experience, in which he describes how he felt there was some kind of human presence within the machine, at once a suspicion that there may have been some kind of foul play occurring, but more likely that the machine had exhibited qualities that we typically presume to be unique to humans, or at least animals with higher levels of cognitive capabilities. And as if that wasn't enough, in 2015, Google's AlphaGo computer beat one of the world-leading players of the ancient Chinese game Go. Now you have to understand that it's widely believed that Go is even more challenging than chess, and so this was huge, but it didn't end there. In pursuit of an even more difficult game to challenge itself against, Google's DeepMind team identified the esports title StarCraft 2 as its next big challenge. And again, in 2019, its AlphaStar program beat one of the world's best players. Year after year, machines prove their capacity to transcend the abilities of humans in almost all areas of expertise. It's not surprising that there seem to be no limits to this. Yet many sectors have declared that these systems will ensure their survival rather than bring about their collapse. We need this machine-led solution to cope with all the extra demand on the system. For instance, in healthcare, we don't have enough doctors or nurses to take care of everyone, and our population keeps rising. We need alternatives. Engineers in my own university are working on developing assistance robots that could provide essential healthcare support for people on a day-to-day basis. At this stage, they're beginning to figure out how these robots could develop their own personalities in response to our own personal preferences. To make them feel more human, they'll be taught how to learn your preferences, what time you like to have your morning cup of tea, or which TV programs you like to watch. They'll develop styles of communication that nudge you towards certain healthier behaviours over others. And we see this kind of work being rolled out all over the world. Just this year, the World Health Organization launched its first digital healthcare worker. This online AI-backed avatar, designed by the Soul Machines company, will talk you through how best to give up smoking. And what's really interesting about the technology is its underpinning belief that, in fact, the machine is more likely than the human to secure better habits for you. It's thought that one of the reasons why people don't manage to achieve giving up smoking, or whatever it might be, is because they're often feeling judged by their human care provider. And so they're not entirely honest about how much they've eaten, drunk or smoked, or how much exercise they haven't done. With the AI, the hypothesis is that you'll not feel judged by the machine, and as a result will be more honest with it, which can ensure a better program of support. Such work is essentially in the business of engineering relationships, a bit like what we see happen in the Spike Jonze film Her, which tells the story of a man who falls in love with an operating system. And while it sounds intuitively like a really bad thing, or at least a very strange thing, there's a mixed bag of feelings about such innovations. Many of us are already automation addicts. We want things to work more smoothly, to be more efficient. And we as a society crave this kind of seamless, barrier-free experience. We want everything to be synchronized and unencumbered by poor design. We also know that people often choose these approaches over others. We choose the most efficient routes towards achieving something unless we believe that a less efficient route is likely to enrich our lives in some valuable way. So we choose illustration over photography because we believe that it offers something else creatively that satisfies that need. We choose to ride a push bike rather than an electric bike, and we do this because we think that it allows us access to an experience that otherwise wouldn't be available to us. And we buy goods from companies other than Amazon, even if their delivery is slower, just because it allows us to support local communities. So while efficiency often matters, it's not always the only thing that drives us, and this makes me optimistic for the future. I'm pretty sure that machines will take most of our jobs, at least the ones that currently exist, but that this process will push us to discover other priorities, other things we want to do, that others may pay money for and seek access to. Teaching will become something other than it is now, so will the healthcare, so will artistry. All of these things will evolve into something quite different. Automation will make us better teachers, better doctors, and will force us to think more critically about what sort of life is worth living. In my mind, there are 4 stages to innovation: creativity, production, utilization and redundancy, but the process is cyclical. Out of redundancy comes a new creation, a different way of imagining the world, and many of our inventions are like this. They don't just service an existing human need, they usher in completely new human desires. In this way, we might think of the development of technology as an evolutionary process, incrementally making things better and at times dramatically breaking from the past into something completely new. One thing's absolutely clear about these prospects. It'll be a very bumpy ride for many of us. We'll have to grapple with humanity's designed obsolescence and see greater adaptive qualities in our learning and an ability to move with agility from one profession to the next, reinventing our professional identities. We'll need to train ourselves to act rather like pluripotent stem cells capable of fulfilling whatever needs our society has at any given time. This is the kind of mindset we'll need to foster to be better prepared for dealing with a future where everything we currently take for granted about how society is organised and ordered becomes something completely different.